Good afternoon, and congratulations to the Argentina fans. My name is Murray Cocking, and I will be moderating this afternoon's press conference for the Canadian Council of Ministers of the Environment. Bonjour, mon nom est Murray Cocking. Je vais présider la conférence de presse pour le Conseil canadien des ministres de l'Environnement cet après-midi. The host minister and current president of CCME, Grant Hunter, Minister of Environment and Protected Areas for Alberta, will open the press conference with a statement. Grant Hunter, ministre de l'Environnement et des Aires protégées de l'Alberta et le président de CCME, prononcerait quelques mots d'ouverture. Following this, Julie Dabrusin, Minister of Environment and Climate Change for the Government of Canada, will speak. À la suite, Julie Dabrusin, ministre de l'Environnement et du Changement climatique pour le gouvernement du Canada, va présenter. We also have with us some other ministers. I will attempt to get the order correct. So from British Columbia, we have Minister Tamara Davidson. From New Brunswick, from New Brunswick, we have Minister Gilles Lepage. From Nova Scotia, we have Minister Timothy Hallman. From Saskatchewan, we have Minister Darlene Rowden. From the Ontario, we have Minister, Todd McCarthy. And from the NWT, we have Minister Jay McDonald. Did I miss anyone? Oh, sorry, pardon me. And it was the hat. It threw me. Sorry. And from the Yukon, we have Minister Wade Schenkel. Thank you for that. One last note. Simultaneous interpretation is available in the room, so please pick up a headset if needed. After the opening statements, there will be time for questions. Après les déclarations, il y aura du temps pour les questions. So with that, Minister Hunter.
Merci, and good afternoon. And thank you for joining us here today. It has been a pleasure to welcome my federal, provincial, and territorial colleagues to Alberta for this year's meeting of the Canadian Council of Ministers of the Environment. There could be no better place to hold these discussions than Calgary. At the heart of Canada's energy sector, meeting here sends a clear message. Canada is ready to build again. Over the past 2 days, ministers discussed how governments can protect the environment while supporting economic growth, attracting investment, and creating jobs. The most important takeaway from our meeting is that these are not competing objectives. That represents a significant shift in the national conversation. Not long ago, the economic consequences of environmental policies were too often treated as a separate consideration, or even as something that should not be part of the discussion. Today, there is a growing recognition that the decisions we make as environment ministers have major implications for investment, jobs, affordability, and competitiveness, and Canada's ability to get major projects built. Protecting the environment remains essential, but our decisions must also be practical, science-based, and timely. Yesterday, our agenda focused on water, reclamation, and responsible stewardship. Experts representing industry, academia, and Indigenous communities spoke about the urgent work underway to advance the reclamation of Alberta's oil sands tailings ponds, the proven science supporting that work, and the need to move from discussion to action. I was proud to share Alberta's progress on oil sands mine, water, and tailings management, including the extensive engagement underway to help shape a responsible long-term approach. My colleagues and I also met with Indigenous business leaders and the Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation. They heard how Alberta's $3.3 billion loan guarantee program helps Indigenous nations and groups secure the capital they need to become owners, not simply participants in major projects. To date, AIOC has developed more than 745 million in loan guarantees across 9 projects involving 43 First Nations and Métis groups. This is economic reconciliation in action. Indigenous ownership, long-term revenues, jobs, and prosperity generated through partnership and participation in the economy. We were also honored to have Premier Smith join us to welcome my ministerial colleagues to Alberta and white hat all of the environment ministers from across Canada. And I have to say, Minister Dabrusin looked particularly sharp in a Stetson. Today, we spent a significant portion of our meetings with Don Farrell, CEO of the Major Projects Office. Our discussion focused on how governments can reduce duplication, improve coordination, and provide greater certainty for the projects Canada needs. Whether we are talking about energy infrastructure, critical minerals, transportation, or other nation-building projects, investors need to know that the rules are clear, decisions will be made within reasonable timelines, and governments are pulling in the same direction. Each jurisdiction has its own priorities and circumstances, but there was clear agreement that governments need to reduce unnecessary red tape, coordinate their work, and provide greater certainty for major projects. Canadians are not asking us to choose between economic growth and environmental stewardship. They expect us to build, innovate, grow our economy, and protect the environment at the same time. That is the shift underway across Canada, a recognition that economic considerations must be part of environmental decision-making, and that environment ministers have an important role in strengthening Canada's economy. The message from Calgary this week is clear. Economic growth and environmental stewardship can and must go hand in hand. Thank you to my ministerial colleagues, Indigenous leaders, presenters, and everyone who helped organize this productive meeting. Alberta was honored to host this year's CCME meeting, and I look forward to reconvening with colleagues in Nunavut next year. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I'm sorry, we have a little bit of a height difference, so I'm going to work that out. But good afternoon, and really thank you, Minister Hunter, for the warm welcome that we've had here over the past 2 days. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered here on the traditional territories of the people of Treaty 7 in southern Alberta. The city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. Prenons un moment pour rendre hommage à ces terres et à ces eaux, notamment les rivières Beau et Albo, que les peuples autochtones préservent et entretiennent depuis toujours. Et à mes collègues ministres, merci pour votre leadership et votre collaboration. Today's discussions have made one thing clear. We are meeting at a moment of real change. Economies are evolving, industries are transforming, and Canadians are looking to us to set our country on a path to good jobs and to a protection of our shared environment. The world today looks different than it did 10 years ago. We are in a global energy crisis, and Canadians are paying for it on every bill. We need an approach that reduces emissions durably over the long term. An approach that makes life more affordable, because a plan that Canadians cannot afford will not hold. And an approach that changes the structure of our economy so that emissions reductions become a feature of economic growth, not a constraint on it. These are mutually reinforcing priorities for our government. Through our climate competitiveness strategy, we are coupling clean economic growth with long-term prosperity. We are facilitating projects that expand electricity grids, including expanding Alberta's interties with Saskatchewan and British Columbia. We are supporting the retrofit of up to 1 million homes. And we are ensuring Canadian workers and businesses have the tools and the skills that they need to be leaders in a low-carbon economy. Leadership doesn't just happen by chance. It requires partnership, investment, and a shared commitment to building a better future. That means working together across all levels of government to turn opportunity into action, embedding things like clean and renewable power, mass electrification, clean technologies, and energy efficiency in homes and businesses across the country. It is the focus, this focus, a focus on working together, and I really want to underline that, working together to build our clean economy that will grow Canada into a net zero future. That is exactly why conversations like the ones we've had today matter. C'est cette collaboration qui porte des résultats, tant pour le climat que pour l'économie et pour les générations du futur. La tâche à accomplir est claire. Continuer à aller à l'avant. Ensemble, nous pouvons faire progresser des solutions qui favorisent la croissance économique, renforcent nos communautés et protègent l'environnement. This is how we're going to build a cleaner, stronger, and more resilient Canada. Thank you, and thank you to all of the ministers for participating in this wonderful meeting. Merci.
Thank you, Minister Dabrusin. We'll now take questions. Nous allons maintenant prendre les questions. We will start in the room, and in the interest of time, because there are so many of you wonderful people with us today, we'll take one question each. If there's time, we will take a follow-up. We'll start in the room, and then we'll proceed to folks who are on Zoom with us today. So please express your interest.
Hi, I'm Felix from Radio Canada. So yeah, question for both Minister Hunter and Minister Dabrusin, and if you can also answer in French would be great. Was there some tension in between the two levels of government, knowing that the federal government still has a plan to push renewable energies that could compete with Alberta traditional oil and gas energy?
Ladies first. You know, I want to say if I can take a moment to talk about these meetings at a higher level, because I think it's so important in answering your question. We had a meeting where we had all orders of government at the table talking together in true cooperation. And that is what Canadians want to see from us. They want to see that we are doing the work that we need together. They don't want to see us fighting. And that is what they would have seen. If they could have been at the table with us, they would have seen all orders of government from across the country working together to talk about how we build a strong, united country for the future, and how do we make sure that we're protecting the environment and building for a climate competitive future. So I would say the tone in the room was very positive, and I take that as something so special that we can bring forward. Et si vous voulez que je réponde en français, juste très vite à dire que si les gens auront pu voir qu'est-ce que on a eu dans cette chambre pour les 2 jours, c'était vraiment avoir un partenariat entre tous les ordres du gouvernement, les provinces, les territoires, le gouvernement fédéral. On travaille ensemble parce que ça, c'est qu'est-ce que les Canadiens veulent voir. Ils veulent voir qu'on peut travailler ensemble pour bâtir un pays fort, une économie forte et pour protéger l'environnement. Et ça, c'est exactement le sentiment qu'on a eu dans cette chambre les derniers 2 jours. Merci.
Next question from someone else in the room?
I'm just going to add a bit. Look, from my perspective, this is my first CCME. And I will say that the tone in the room was extremely professional and collaborative. I think that Minister Dabrusin has, for the last 6 months that I've been doing this job, she's been more than willing to talk about the issues and the concerns that she has, just the same as we have in Alberta. And what the words you've heard is cooperative federalism. And what does that look like? I think lots of people are saying, well, those are words, but what does it actually look like? Well, I can say that in the last 6 months, working with the federal government has been so much better than what we have had in the past 10 years before that. There has been a real effort to say that cooperative federalism means that all members of the federation, are equal members in this confederation. And I can tell you that from east to west, we have seen that kind of collaboration. We've had really frank discussions during these last 2 days, but it has always been with the goal of being able to figure out how Canada can start thinking big and building big again. And Alberta can be part of the solution. Just as each of the provinces can provide, they have value propositions to provide Confederation, making sure that we can be competitive on a national, international scale. So this is what I heard during this conference, and it's wonderful that we can gather together and talk about how we can do both, be economic engine for the world, but also be the best stewards when it comes to environmental standards.
Next question in the room.
Hi, Bill Graveland from Canadian Press. Minister Hunter, if you could come up. You were talking about the fact that economic interests need to be considered when developing environmental policy, but when you're looking at the wildfire situation across the country right now, especially Ontario at the moment, does that give you any pause?
Well, look, we've had wildfire season throughout the history of our country, and that will not stop. Where we think our value proposition is that the world will need more Canadian energy. I was in Montreal a couple of weeks ago, and the chair of the International Energy Agency, the most respected person when it comes to energy, said it will be Canada that is the trusted partner to the world that will provide the energy the world needs in the coming decades. And when I heard him say that, I recognized that this is our opportunity. This is our time. There's not often you get that where everything comes together to be able to help a country. And really, the world is looking to Canada to be that energy superpower that is a trusted, consistent partner. And this is what we'll provide. And we think that we do that very well and better than any other jurisdiction because of the high standards we have when it comes to environmental standards.
Anyone else in the room, or shall we go to Zoom? Okay, going to Zoom, we'll take Mark Villani, CTV, Calgary. Are you able to connect, Mark?
Hi there. Yes. Can you hear me on your end?
Wonderfully.
Perfect. Yeah, a question for Minister Hunter, just about the original Pathways proposal. It was aimed to capture 22 megatons of emissions annually by 2030. The current plan is now for about 6 megatons by 2035. Why should Albertans view this as a meaningful emissions reduction plan when the project's scope has been scaled significantly back like this?
Well, thank you, Mark. The reality is that in order for us to be able to provide the product from Canada, we have to be competitive with other jurisdictions. And so as we've worked through the MOU with our federal partners, look, this is about being able to figure out how do we move forward, what are the timelines in order to be able to move forward and still be able to do what our Premier has been asked to do, and what the world is demanding is for us to double production and to be able to do that in a responsible way. That means that there's a CCUS component to it. So we're going to get there, but it will come in stages, and the first stage is what you've just described. So I don't think that we have to say that we've lost the narrative on this. In fact, what we've done is we've just been able to galvanize, being able to make sure that what we are trying to accomplish can be done properly and make sure that we're competitive on an international scale.
Thank you. And we'll now go to Rahim Mohammed with National Post. Are you there, Rahim?
Yes. Everyone can hear me. This is also for Minister Hunter. So sorry about that. I know you were just called up. But you've expressed some concerns about potential federal land use restrictions stemming from the, 30 by 30 plan to protect 1 million plus hectares between 2030. You've expressed these concerns publicly. Is this an area where you've had a chance to engage with your counterpart, Minister Dabrusin, and have the two of you made any progress on coming up with an arrangement that's workable for both Ottawa and Alberta?
Well, first of all, I will say that when it comes to land use, Minister Dabrusin and I maybe are defining it a little different. And so I don't hold that against her. I just say that, look, ranchers were the first stewards of the land, and they're not recognized in that narrow scope of what conservation looks like. And I think that needs to be revisited. I certainly know lots of ranchers, friends of mine, that are saying, you know what, we know the biodiversity on our ranch, and these are working landscapes. And so this is maybe where we have some differences that we've talked about is what does that mean? Who are those stewards? We think in Alberta, and I think that probably most provinces believe the same thing, that the ranchers are great stewards of their lands. They have a vested interest in being great stewards of those lands. So I think that's where maybe the difference is, but I don't want to put words into Minister Dabrusin's mouth, so maybe she can come up and answer her for her part.
Thank you so much. And actually, so if we put out a Force in Nature, our nature implementation plan earlier this year, and it included several parts, and could wax poetic about all of it. But one part that was important is on land, like how do we conserve the lands and waters that Canadians love so much? And that includes in it other effective conservation measures. That is a long word, but what it really is about how do we better recognize working lands that are also conserving lands. So some examples that were given, for example, in the implementation plan were a military base where there might be lands that are actually also in use, but also conserved. And actually the rancher example is another great example that can be used. I had the opportunity to visit a ranch while I was here in Alberta and actually get to see in real life, in the most beautiful way, the care and protection of the lands, the knowledge of the grasses, and I believe that the way they described it was as being guardians of the grasses when they were talking about the protection of grasslands. How can we work together? I think this is exactly the kind of space where we can work together with provinces and territories in recognizing the good stewardship of so many Canadians who care for their land. And that is something which I'm looking forward to working with not Minister Hunter, but also all of the provinces and territories as we move forward.
We have a question from David Thurton, CBC News. Go ahead, David.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. This is for Minister Dabrusin. Certainly, the current government's approach to reducing emissions have changed. My question to you is, when will we see an updated federal climate plan that complies with the Net Zero Accountability Act?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And it gives me an opportunity because I think that we've actually been talking quite a bit about what we are doing in this plan. Let me begin by being very clear that we are absolutely committed to reaching net zero by 2050. I want to be very clear about that. The way that we are approaching it is by bringing structural changes to our economy. We need to be a climate competitive economy. I was in Europe where I was talking with world leaders who were also talking very much in the same way about how do we build durable changes to our economies that also work to reduce emissions. And when I say that, one strong example is the electricity strategy that we released. The electricity strategy talks about how we're going to double our electricity grid because electrification is the future for our economy, for the global economy. It is how we work to reduce emissions across our country. That strategy included investment tax credits that will help provinces to build stronger grids within their provinces. We already have put in place investment tax credits to help with building interties, and we have now also referred to the Major Projects Office. How do we better interconnect provinces, territories, regions, so that we can actually have a stronger grid for that future electrification? We are also committed to retrofitting up to 1 million homes. That's important for how do we actually help Canadians with affordability on their energy bills. And at the same time, it works to reduce emissions. In fact, I was at the same International Energy Agency conference where one of the big themes was that, the cheapest energy is the energy you don't use. So how do we work to better energy efficiency? But we remain absolutely committed to our net zero by 2050 goal. We have been working, and you can see pieces, in fact, in what we're doing, not only with the electricity strategy, but in pieces that we're putting in place with our methane regulations. We enhanced our methane regulations in December, which will be a significant reduction of emissions for our country. And in fact, we're world leaders, and I really don't want to shy away from that. Like when I travel around the world, they look to our regulations on methane and our technologies that we're developing here on methane, and we are world leaders in that space. We're also working at strengthening our industrial carbon price. You see that with the MOUs that we've put in place, not only with Alberta, but also with British Columbia, and we are continuing to do that work. There is a lot more work to do, but we are putting in place the structural pieces, the durable pieces, so that we can get to that target of net zero by 2050.
Please restate some of that in French, please.
Oh, et mon Dieu. Okay.
Just 1 minute, please, Minister. I just want to give a warning that after this, we will have to shut down our press conference. We've come to the end of our time, but s'il vous plaît.
D'accord. Alors, juste à dire qu'on est entièrement engagé à être carboneutre d'ici 2050. Alors, ça, c'est la première chose. Deuxième chose, c'est que qu'est-ce qu'on fait? C'est qu'on fait des changements durables à notre économie. Et quand je parle de ça, je parle de, si on regarde notre stratégie d'électricité qu'on a produit en mai, qu'est-ce que vous voyez? C'est qu'est-ce que nous faisons du côté durable, les changements durables qu'on doit faire pour notre économie pour s'assurer qu'on réduit nos émissions à gaz à effet de serre. Alors, ça inclut comment est-ce qu'on va travailler pour doubler notre réseau d'électricité. Notre réseau d'électricité au Canada, c'est un des plus propres du monde. On est déjà à 80% ou un peu plus propre. Alors, comment est-ce qu'on va doubler notre réseau d'électricité? On a des crédits de taxes impôts d'investissement, taxes d'investissement qu'on a mis en place. On a déjà mis en place pour mieux connecter les provinces entre eux-mêmes. Mais maintenant aussi, on va mettre en plus pour qu'on peut aider les provinces à bâtir leur réseau d'électricité à l'intérieur des provinces. Et aussi, en même temps, on voit qu'on on a engagé pour des retrofits pour 1 million de maisons au Canada. Et moi, j'étais à Montréal pour la conférence avec l'Agence internationale de l'énergie. Et qu'est-ce qu'ils ont dit à cette conférence? C'était très clair que c'est l'énergie qui est moins chère. Et plus important, c'est l'énergie qu'on n'utilise pas. Alors, comment est-ce qu'on va aider nos entreprises et les Canadiens à moins utiliser ou utiliser moins d'électricité? Ça aide avec l'abordabilité en même temps. D'autres choses que je voulais juste dire, c'est du côté de méthane, on a mis des règlements en place en décembre pour renforcer nos règlements de méthane. Ils sont, du côté mondial, on est chef de file. Et quand je parle avec d'autres pays, ils nous demandent comment on l'a fait. Ils sont très intéressés, pas seulement dans nos règlements, mais aussi dans les technologies que nous développons ici au Canada du côté de méthane. Ça réduit nos émissions. C'est aussi quelque chose qui nous aide du côté de l'économie. Et je veux juste m'assurer que j'ai toutes les choses. L'autre chose que je voulais dire, c'est que si on regarde le prix de carbone industriel, quand on voit qu'est-ce que nous avons avec l'entente avec Alberta, mais aussi avec la Colombie-Britannique, on s'engage pour renforcer le prix sur le carbone industriel. C'est quelque chose de très important. Alors, nous avons beaucoup de travail à continuer à le faire, mais on le fait et on le fait parce que je veux renforcer ce point. On le fait parce qu'on est entièrement engagé à être carbone neutre d'ici 2050. Merci.
Thank you very much. That's all the time that we have left. Thank you to all the ministers for your excellent work today. And thank you for coming out. Merci. C'est tout le temps qu'il reste.